This is Peninsula TV's coverage of the 47th Annual Progress Seminar. The yearly event happened from April 8th through the 10th. The Redwood City, San Mateo County Chamber of Commerce invited people from the county government, local business, and community leaders for a weekend retreat in Monterey to meet on community issues during keynote events and breakout sessions. The breakout sessions included Highway 101 Corridor, ensuring our economic engine keeps moving. Middle class in transition, from pickup trucks to Teslas. Connecting our communities. Housing options for all. Reflecting the community we serve, our next generation steps up. And now on to coverage from the 2016 Progress Seminar.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. All right. We're bright and early, but we're so glad to see you. My name is Steve Elliott, and I am the chairman of the Redwood City, San Mateo County Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of your co-chairs, Assemblymember Kevin Mullin, Supervisor Carole Groom, and SAMCEDA President Rosanne Foust, it is my honor to welcome you to the 47th Annual Progress Seminar. We're thrilled with this year's program and are confident you will find it worth the 100-mile trip here to attend on a weekend at 7:30 in the morning when it's raining outside. We really appreciate the show of support for this great tradition of coming together and sharing perspectives and ideas with the goal of moving our communities forward. It's truly a unique San Mateo County treasure that all of you make happen through your enthusiastic participation. The Progress Seminar has grown into a one-of-a-kind event, and that would not be possible without the sponsors and their generosity here today. We appreciate their commitment to the Progress Seminar so much. And it's now my privilege to recognize some of our sponsors, as well as a number of other special guests in front of you this morning. I'm going to start on my right. We have Papia Gamblin, Director, Corporate Affairs, Pacific Gas and Electric. Jill Singleton, Public Affairs, Cargill. Wade Painter, President, CEO, San Mateo Credit Union. Sherry Sager, Chief Government and Community Relations Officer, Lucille Packard Children's Hospital. Warren Slocum, President, San Mateo County Board of Supervisors. There you go, thank you. Juan Salazar with Facebook. He's not here this morning, he's on his way. San Mateo County Supervisor, Carole Groom. On my left, Assemblymember Kevin Mullin. Ted Girdner, Vice President, Business Services, Comcast, California. President and CEO of SAMCEDA, Rosanne Foust, and former mayor of Redwood City, I was about to add, and a co-chair of the Progress Seminar. Mr. David Grusky, Director, Stanford Center on Poverty and Inequality, Stanford. And I think Caitlin is here, Caitlin Niedermeyer, somewhere in the audience, Public Policy Associate for Google. And last but certainly not least, Gino Gasparini, Public Affairs Manager, Recology, San Mateo County. So thank you so much to our sponsors this morning. In your program, you will see that we have all of the speakers and panelists' bios, which you can read at your leisure, giving us a little bit more time during the breakouts and general sessions for panel discussions and keynote speakers. At this time, I would like to thank our Progress Seminar co-chairs, Rosanne Foust, Carole Groom, and Kevin Mullin, for their hard work and fantastic job that they did, and their committee did, in putting together this year's program. Now I'd like to invite, thank you. Now I would like to invite Rosanne up to the podium to start our program.
morning, everyone. How are you feeling today? Are you ready to go through a fabulous day? Great breakouts, good keynotes. Could we have kind of a San Mateo County, woohoo? Come on. Okay, so, yeah, we'll work on that for lunchtime because it was similar to when Kevin said, okay, thank the co-chairs. We did a lot of heavy lifting, but we couldn't have done it without the committee. So would the Progress Seminar committee members please stand up? Come on, Progress Seminar committee members. I'm going to be perfectly frank. Without them, we couldn't put today's program on. So the three of us really thank them very much. And we thank Amy Buckmaster, Carolina Webster, and Nina Gann with the Chamber. It was the Chamber's vision many years ago to begin this Progress Seminar, and it has continued for many, many years. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go through a rapid list of names, and I would ask everyone whose name I read off if you could please stand up and stay standing, and I'll explain why at the end. It's all good stuff. It is, seriously. Ricciardo Archilla, Rafael Avedano, Chris Axton, Anil Babar, Emily Beach, Joanne Brion. Are people standing? Yes, good. Mark Burry, Dave Caro, Emily Castor, April Chan, Elizabeth Dahlman, Madison Davis, Marianne Derwin, Melissa Stevenson Diaz, Ron Fornissi. I'm not seeing a lot of people stand up, folks. Tammy Fornessi, Jason Galisadis, Jonathan Gervais, Maurice Goodman, Dave Grusky, Ashley Quintana, Pradeep Gupta, John Haveman, Stacy Hover, Sam Hindi, Davina Hurt, Joyce Iberdolasa, Gary Johnson, Eli Key, Lewis Knight, Mara Langer, Janet Lawson, Lloyd Levine, Jane Lindenthal, Lori Liu, Catherine Monenpour, Rachel Meyer, Kevin Miller, Doug Nolan, Pamela O'Leary, Wade Painter, Diane Pappin, Ryan Patterson, Gary Pollard, Gerald Posky, Ken Rakestraw, Shanna Riley Kahn, Lauren Richardson, Mindy Romero, James Gomez, Juan Salazar, Liz Gammon, Ann Schneider, Kim Seitz, Chris Stallman, Chip Taylor, Judy Taylor, Augie Torres, Irving Torres, Shirley Terrell, Meta Townsley, Richard Trumpler, Judy Trubb, Gary Waddell, Dave Witowski, Dr. Tim Wong, Gina Zari, and Mia Zelka. Are all those folks standing? These are your first-time attendees to the Progress Seminar. Woo! So many of you know I've referred to this group in the past as fresh meat. So these are the folks that all the people who have come here many times before, please take a moment to engage them, to talk to them. I remember my first Progress Seminar 16 plus years ago. I didn't know a whole lot of people. And so when people came up and said, hello, is this your first time? It made an impression. So really, I encourage you, please make them feel welcome because we would like to see them come back. I'd also like to announce that 16 of 20 San Mateo County cities are represented at this Progress Seminar. And I'm going to call out the leadership. So if the leadership of these cities can stand when your name is called, I'd really appreciate it. Mayor John Siebert, City of Redwood City. Vice Mayor Ian Bain, City of Redwood City. Mayor Rick Kowalczyk, City of Half Moon Bay. Debbie Ruddick, Vice Mayor, City of Half Moon Bay. Mayor Cameron Johnson, City of San Carlos. Mayor Sue DeGree, City of Pacifica. Mayor Pro Tem Mike O'Neill, City of Pacifica. Mayor Mary Ann Derwin, Town of Portola Valley. Mayor Herb Perez, City of Foster City. Mayor Joe Goethals, City of San Mateo. Mayor Ann Oliva, City of Millbrae. Vice Mayor Ruben Holliver, City of Millbrae. Mayor Pro Tem Kirsten Key, City of Menlo Park. Mayor Pro Tem Lori Liu, City of Brisbane. Vice Mayor Pradeep Gupta, City of South San Francisco. Vice Mayor Charles Stone, City of Belmont. Vice Mayor Helen Fisicaro, Town of Colma. Council members Irene O'Connell and Kenny Barra, City of San Bruno. Council member Ray Buenaventura, City of Daly City. Council member Emily Beach, City of Burlingame. There are other council members in the room, so will you please, all of you, please stand up, all the council members. We want to thank all of you for being here today, for representing your city and being a part of the Progress Seminar. And our group of chamber executives. Events like this don't happen without partnerships, and my hat goes off to Amy Buckmaster and how her team has reached out to all the individual chambers in San Mateo County to make sure that they're here today and have the ability to come and really be a part of it. So I'm going to announce the chamber executives. If we could give them a rousing welcome as well. Cheryl Angeles, San Mateo Chamber. Dave Bouchard, San Carlos Chamber. Amy Buckmaster, Redwood City Chamber. Mitch Bull, Brisbane Chamber. Fran Dean, Menlo Park Chamber. Maria Martinucci, South San Francisco Chamber. Jamie Monazin, San Bruno Chamber. Georgette Naylor, Burlingame Chamber. Charisse McHugh, Half Moon Bay Chamber. And Lorianne Richardson, Millbrae Chamber. Let's give them all a hand. We laugh when we as co-chairs break up who does what. I grew up in New York and I talk fast, which is why I got that assignment to read everyone's names. So it works. Now I'm going to bring up our beloved supervisor of San Mateo County, Carole Groom, who will introduce our first speaker this morning. Come on, folks, let's welcome Carole.
Good morning. Okay, I got a little bit better than Rosanne there. It's my real honor this morning to introduce to you, really needs no introduction, Supervisor Warren Slocum. He was elected to the Board of Supervisors in November of 2012. He represents the 4th District, which includes East Palo Alto, East Menlo Park, Redwood City, and the unincorporated community of North Fair Oaks. He has a deep passion for public service, and for over 20 years, he has worked hard to improve the quality of life for the people on the peninsula. You all remember when he was the chief election officer, went to Bosnia to show them how to vote, show them about democracy. So he is focused on the issues of housing, youth, and veterans. In fact, one of his most recent accomplishments was the creation of the San Mateo County Veterans Task Force. He's committed and focused to the issues of housing. He and Don Horsley are chairing our county-wide housing task force. He is a Vietnam vet, earned his degree from San Diego State University on the GI Bill. He is proud to have served as an election officer in Albania. He and his wife, Maria Diaz Slocum, a Redwood City School District trustee and family call Redwood City home. He's a technology enthusiast, got every piece of equipment there is. An amateur photographer. He calls himself a hack golfer, but he's pretty good. He loves the outdoors, he loves dogs. He's always looking for a great cup of coffee. And I just want to add one personal comment. He is a great, great colleague, deeply committed to the people of this county. Great supervisor. Please welcome Warren Slocum.
Carole, thank you for that great introduction. I I want to ask your indulgence for just a moment because I'm going to go off script a little bit here already. You know how is Don Horsley here? I thought I saw him walk in. He's over here. You know how elected officials have these catchy little taglines for their community meetings? You all know about those, right? It's like donuts with Don, Java with Jerry, Coffee with Kevin. What is that? We've all... So, stay with me now. So not to be outdone, my very able staff came up with an idea. It's called Selfies with Slocum. And if you went to the District 4, if you went to the District 4 office, you would see a little thread with all these little, like, remember Polaroid cameras? Well, they have a little attachment now for the iPhone where you can take a picture and print like a small Polaroid picture. Did you know that? And so what we do is when we go to community events and North Fair Oaks Community Festival, whatever it is, we do selfies with Slocum. And then we have little clothespins and we put them up on the line outside the office. And as people are coming in to see a supervisor or Mr. Mulby or Mike Callaghy or whoever it is, they stop and they look at these pictures and it always brings a smile to their face. So right now, we, together, you, this beautiful audience, and I, are going to do a selfie with Slocum. Okay, here we go. Everybody, smile. There we go. Thank you. Just one other thing, since Juan Salazar is here, I just want to tell you about a new Facebook application called Live, where on your Facebook application, you can actually stream video live. So, I'm just kidding, Juan. First, let me start by saying that the state of the county is stronger than ever. Yeah. And we're working hard on regional issues in a collaborative way. And I think from my perspective, it can be said that we are tackling some of the most biggest challenges of our generation head on. So Jerry Seinfeld said, everybody remembers Jerry Seinfeld, right? Jerry Seinfeld said, quote, "I am so busy doing nothing that the idea of doing anything, which as you know, always leads to something, cuts into the nothing and then forces me to have to drop everything." So hopefully, all of us have dropped everything, given the opportunity to gather here in Monterey and learn new things and strengthen the ties that bind us all here in this room. And of course, Monterey, California, is one of the most beautiful places on the West Coast, right? Right behind San Mateo County. Thank you to Amy Buckmaster, President and CEO of the Redwood City Chamber, and all the chambers and organizations in San Mateo County that are co-hosting this year's Progress Seminar. Also thanks to event co-chairs Kevin Mullin, Rosanne, Foust, and my dear colleague, Supervisor Carole Groom, and to the committee and staff that worked so hard to make this year's event come together. I mean, it's an incredible undertaking to gather this many people and have an organized program. So let's give it up for all of them. It's a privilege. It's a privilege as president of the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors to present this time-honored tradition of the State of the County update. But before I do that, let me just take a moment to give some context to what follows. We're all witness to the changes around us in demographics, in income, in housing prices, the mix of businesses in our area, and yes, even our skylines. Life on the peninsula is very different, even from just 5 years ago. And we are in the midst of this profound transformation that's going on all around us. Our mix of cultures, language, food, tradition makes us very diverse. Our immigrant population, listen to this is hard to believe, but listen. Our immigrant population has grown at a faster rate than most other counties in California. We are the fourth fastest growing immigrant population here in San Mateo County of any county in California. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? And basically, as you drive around, you see all these help wanted signs. The unemployment rate on the peninsula is among the lowest in the state at around 3%. That's pretty incredible, isn't it? 3%. Personal income has increased to nearly $90,000 per capita, and our area attracts more visitors than ever before. Last year, for instance, 50 million passengers passed through SFO. The airport had the highest rate of international visitors of any American airport in 2015. Now, I thought I saw Dave Pine earlier. Is he here? There he is, over there. So, in preparing for this talk this morning, I actually went back, and there are videos online. If you're interested, you can watch keynote addresses from prior years. And just to get a little suggestion and hint, I actually watched Dave Pine's presentation to you all a couple of years ago. And regarding the airport and the huge number of visitors to the airport, he commented in what I hope was a lighter moment that most of those visitors were probably going to the Pez Museum in Burlingame. And Dave, I'm sorry, but that's just not the case. He really did say that, by the way. The median home price in December of 2015 was $925,000, up nearly 15% over the prior year. In 2010, the property tax roll was $141 billion. Today, it's $177 billion. And as we all know, the demand for office space in all of our cities has just gone on unchecked. I mean, there's building going on, it seems like, everywhere in San Mateo County. So that's a brief snapshot of the strength of our local economy, but what about the strength of our county government? And I believe you can measure that strength by asking and answering 4 questions. The first one is, how safe are our communities? Next, how well are we providing for the health and well-being of the most vulnerable among us? How well do we collaborate with partners to effectively serve all the people of the county? And finally, the county manager will like this one, how well are the county's finances being managed? Yeah? So let's go back and answer some of those questions. First, how safe are we in San Mateo County? And we're very fortunate. San Mateo County is one of the safest urban counties in the state. Violent and property crime have decreased by 27% and 21% respectively since 2006. This is an important statistic. Our recidivism rate is 24% compared to the state's average of 61%. How about that? So maybe we should give it up for Sheriff Monks and all the police agencies in San Mateo County and all the cities for the work that they do. In March, we celebrated the ribbon cutting of the Maple Street Correctional Facility in Redwood City. It's not a temporary warehouse with a revolving door for people who've committed crimes, but rather it's a facility designed to provide an array of services to inmates who earn the right to develop themselves and establish a new course for their lives. Programs like the Choices Reentry Program, the Culinary Training Program, computer classes, GED classes, art therapy, and other programs in that facility will be made available to inmates. So we should thank Sheriff Greg Monks and Under Sheriff Carlos Bolanos, but especially we need to thank my colleague, Supervisor Adrienne Tissier, for their, and especially her, incredible vision on this topic. It's taken 11 years of hard work and an unwavering commitment, despite opposition and uncertain economic times, to get that facility constructed. And I think it was on March 19th that the first women, actually, I believe, started to populate that facility, leaving a dilapidated, just horrible women's jail for this new facility. So to Adrienne Tissier, who unfortunately couldn't be here, we just want to say a big thank you for her work. And something that will bring a smile to the county manager's face and to city managers all across the county. This project was done on time and within budget. So, next question. What does the health and well-being picture look like for the most vulnerable among us? Well, honestly, it's a mixed picture. On the positive side, San Mateo County is one of the most successful counties in the state in assisting people to sign up under Covered California, the state's health insurance exchange. Our uninsured population has declined from 30% to 9% in just 2 years. And all of the children in San Mateo County are covered by the Healthy Kids program or by private insurance. And that was, the Healthy Kids initiative was an initiative started by your Board of Supervisors. So thank you, Supervisor Groom, and everybody else that had a hand in that. Many mental health programs that were cut back during the Great Recession have been restored, and new programs have been added. Last year, Measure A dollars helped fund a startup called the California Clubhouse, which is a very successful program for adults which focuses on actual work. It's a very interesting program, and we're proud to have contributed to that. We also expanded the SMART teams that provide crisis intervention and respite care for the mentally ill, and we voted unanimously to implement Laura's Law, adding to the toolkit of strategies to prevent needless tragedies. While the number of people with access to health care has grown, the most vulnerable in San Mateo County are frankly being squeezed out of the local housing market due to the economic vitality of our region and the lack of housing at all levels, not just affordable, but all levels. There are 5 numbers that some of you who are on the Closing the Jobs Housing Task Force have heard before. Please forgive me, but they're worth repeating. Here they are. Between the years of 2010 and 2014, 4 years, 55,000 new jobs were added here. 55,000. In that same period of time, there were 2,200 new housing units added. So you wonder about that jobs housing gap? There it is. There was 20 million square feet of office space added to the inventory. Around $3,000 is the rent of one of those new apartments in Redwood City. And that goes true throughout the county. And $53 an hour is the salary a person needs. $53 an hour is the salary a person needs to maintain a housing cost burden of 30%. This is a problem for the entire county and for all of its cities and employers. It threatens the diversity of our communities, the vitality of our businesses, and erodes, frankly, our quality of life. Just two significant reminders, if I could. We all travel on Highway 101 or 280 and surface streets like El Camino Real through Menlo Park, for instance. No offense, Ray. But we all know this fact, that traffic is bad. And it used to be, in the good old days, that you could get on 101 during the day and not be bumper to bumper. Pretty much anymore, it's crowded. The other reminder is that many service workers, especially our teachers, public sector workers, are having to move further and further away in search of an affordable place to live. Fully 20% of our people are struggling to get by, working 2 and 3 jobs just to pay the rent and put food on the table. The good news is that to date, the county has allocated a lot of money. In fact, $19.1 million for the creation of 603 housing units to support families, veterans, seniors, and the very low income, as well as the mentally ill. We've allocated $3 million in affordable housing funds for 300 homeless shelter beds, and another $7.8 million will be distributed later this year. I'm very proud to have worked with Don Horsley and others on the board, where we didn't, but Core Builders did, built a veterans homeless housing unit in the city of Menlo Park. Menlo Park put up a lot of money, the county put up some money, and that project opened recently, in fact in January, and it now houses 60 veterans who otherwise would have been homeless. How's that? In March, just last month, the University Avenue Senior Housing Project broke ground. That development will add 41 units for seniors in East Palo Alto. And later this month, the Sequoia Bellhaven project will break ground, adding 90 affordable apartments for seniors in Menlo Park. So lots and lots of work has been done. There is a lot of work that's currently underway, but we all know that there's a lot of work that lies ahead of us all. So the next question is, how well do we collaborate with the partners to serve the residents of this county? How well do we collaborate? Well, let me illustrate this point, if I could, by shining a light on the work of my colleagues. But first, as a new supervisor, let me just say that people always ask me, everywhere I go, people ask me this question: what's it really like to work with Supervisor Carole Groom? What's it really like to work with Supervisor Dave Pine, Don Horsley, and Adrian? What's that really like? What do you guys do back there? And if you're sitting at Horsley's table, I'm sure he's getting a little nervous right now. So I'm going to give it to you just absolutely straight, okay? I pride myself on honesty, and I'm going to give it to you straight. Bottom line is that my colleagues are an amazing group of elected officials, and each one of us is different from the other. And together, I think it's a collegial environment most of the time. And I think we do amazing work and that's a credit to each and every one of those supervisors. And let me just say how proud I am to serve with you all. I'm not going to reveal any secrets. Now, Supervisor Dave Pine. Of course, we all know that he's taken on the urgent issue of sea level rise. He's a leader in creating a planning template to address this issue. And you might not know, but Dave is spearheading a 9-county effort aimed at bay restoration. It's a historic 9-county ballot measure. He's leading that. Supervisors Pine and Groom, as you all probably know, are leading the Peninsula Clean Energy Project, which strives to deliver cleaner, greener energy options to local residents at competitive rates. And the group ought to be very proud because every city in the county has signed on to that initiative. Thank you. Supervisor Carole Groom. You all know that she's a champion for our kids. She's a champion for our kids. And in the past couple of progress seminars, you've heard about the Big Lift, which is an initiative to ensure the future success of our children by increasing reading proficiency from 50% to 80% by the time those students enter the 4th grade. What an ambitious undertaking. What's new this year and unique is that the summer learning program at our libraries is being focused on entering 1st graders, starting that important reading intervention so much earlier. Thank you, Supervisor Groom, for your leadership. Supervisor Don Horsley and I had the opportunity to golf yesterday. I'm very pleased to report that I beat Don. But we are co-chairing the Closing the Jobs Housing Task Force. In addition, he has tackled really important farm labor housing initiatives for low-income workers on the coast and their families. And as our coastal representative, Don's worked very hard to save Surfer Beach on Highway 1 from collapse as the erosion there on that embankment supporting Highway 1 reached a rate of about 1.5 feet per year. So Highway 1 was going to fall off into the ocean. Thank you, Supervisor Horsley, for your leadership on that issue and others. And Supervisor Adrian Tissier, in addition to seeing the work completed on that 11-year project, has also coordinated the law enforcement community and schools community to establish the Coalition for Safe Schools and Communities. And that group was formed after the Beyond Newtown countywide convening with the goal of keeping our kids safe at school. So finally, what about the financial health of this county? Well, it's very strong. We're one of the 3 counties in the state to earn a AAA credit rating from both Moody's and Standard & Poor's. We've reduced unfunded pension and retiree health liabilities. Right now, the retirement system is more than 85% funded, and we expect it to be fully funded within 5 years. And we're maintaining a general fund reserve of around 20% of budget, which is pretty amazing. Measure A, the voter-approved half-cent sales tax measure, is making it possible to build for San Mateo County and the cities a new public safety dispatch and emergency operations center, new fire stations, a new mental health facility out at Cordilleras, and several library improvement projects, and a lot more that there just isn't time to mention. But thanks to the voters of San Mateo County who approved Measure A. So I hope you can see that our communities are safe, our financial position is strong, that we take care of the less fortunate, and we collaborate with anybody who's interested in solving real problems. Someone once said, there's nothing more intoxicating than big, bold things. And as we think about what kind of future all of us are trying to build here, I'd like to leave you with 3, what I think are bold initiatives that I invite you to consider. First, as I mentioned, affordable housing is on everybody's radar. It's a crisis. We've taken important steps to address this issue, but what if cities in San Mateo County joined together, created an affordable housing impact fee, and agreed to share a portion of their individual fees with an organization like HEART, which is a JPA that provides early seed money for affordable housing projects. If we did that, if we could do that together, it would generate millions and millions of dollars for affordable housing projects that HEART could loan out as early seed money to get those things off the ground. Okay, so I mentioned traffic. Traffic is on everybody's radar. It's a problem. And I know there's a panel today on transportation, which should be very interesting. But what if we opened the Dumbarton Rail Corridor that runs from East Palo Alto up to Redwood City, as some kind of a light rail system, if you can imagine that, and connect it to the north-south Caltrain system. This would get a significant number of people off our congested roads and would yield a cleaner environment. Now, I know this project has been around for years and years and years, and everybody says, oh, there's no way, Supervisor, that's going to happen. But what if we could do that? That would be amazing. And finally, as joint venture Silicon Valley has said, a world-class wireless network is one of the keys to robust economic development throughout this region. And right now, the network that exists, especially in San Mateo County, is anything but world-class. There are dead spots, dead zones, lots and lots of families do not have internet access, and that really shouldn't be the case in the innovation center of the world. Our businesses, schools, families, nonprofits, and our kids who rely on the network to do homework, to do learning, to do reading, deserve a future. They deserve a future where everybody has world-class access to the network, period. So, go ahead. Thank you. And as leaders, we make choices every day. We make choices every day through our action or inaction. I'm not going to make a crack about Washington there. But every day as leaders, we make choices through our actions or inaction. I think we've chosen action, and the state of our county is strong because of it. Now I'm going to close with an old African proverb that we should be reminded of from time to time. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. Surely, our destiny will depend on how many of us choose to join forces and confront the challenges of our time, and that's exactly why we're here. Thank you all for your attention. Enjoy the seminar. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Slocum. for setting the tone for the day today. I'm Assemblymember Kevin Mullin, and I'm excited to hear our next speaker because he's going to be talking about issues directly relevant to the challenges that we face as policymakers at all levels in San Mateo County and the private sector as well. So I am very pleased to bring to the podium David Grusky. David is the Barbara Kimball Browning Professor in the School of Humanities and Sciences, Director of the Stanford Center on Poverty and Inequality, and co-editor of Pathways magazine. His research addresses the changing nature of late industrial inequality and addresses such topics as the role of rent-seeking and market failure in explaining the takeoff in income inequality, the amount of economic and social mobility in the US and other high inequality countries, with a particular focus on the Great Gatsby hypothesis that opportunities for social mobility are declining. I'm interested to hear more about that. The role of essentialism in explaining the persistence of extreme gender inequality, the forces behind recent changes in the amount of face-to-face and online cross-class contact, and the putative decline of big social classes. He is also involved in projects to improve the country's infrastructure for monitoring poverty, inequality, and mobility by exploiting administrative and other forms of big data more aggressively. This is a little heavy for 8:45 in the morning, but I think we'll be able to manage it. His recent books include Social Stratification, 2014, Occupy the Future, another book called The New Gilded Age, another one called The Great Recession. He's a busy guy. The Inequality Reader, as well as The Inequality Puzzle. Please join me in welcoming Dr. David Grusky.
Well, thanks for such a kind introduction. It's a real honor and pleasure to be here. I'm going to get right to it. I want to talk about how we might go about reducing poverty in a substantial way. And California is, as probably most of you know, not just the land of plenty. It is, of course, that, but it's also unfortunately the land of poverty. If you measure poverty with the country's, what many think are the country's premier measure of poverty, a supplemental poverty measure, we rank dead last, with more than 1 in 5 in the state in poverty. Dead last. And you might ask, we're a can-do state, right? We're a progressive state. When we see a big problem, we tend to take it on and do pretty amazing things. And there's a lot that we can be proud of in this state. But you might then wonder why this is a pretty big problem, and yet for all that we've done, and we've done amazing things in this state. We have a new earned income tax credit. We have a minimum wage movement that's very robust. You just heard about a lot of very, very important initiatives underway more locally. We've done a lot of good things, but this is a big, big problem. And you might ask, why haven't we done even more? And I think there are a lot of reasons. But I want to proffer just one that I think is part of the answer as to why we haven't taken on this big problem in a big way. And I think it's what I call the too complicated narrative. And it says that it's a problem that we just don't fully understand, and that the best we can do when we have problems that we don't fully understand, when we have problems that are really complicated, the best that we can do is more research, which is great for someone doing research with a full employment policy. But I'm not sure, as good as it is for scholars to have that approach, I don't think it's actually on the mark. And I think, in fact, we already know a lot about poverty. We know about the sources of poverty. They're, in fact, not all that complicated, as much as academics try to complicate it up. But it's not all that complicated. And I'd say we've gotten it a bit wrong in that what's complicated is the consequences of poverty, but not the causes. So I want to give you what I call the pollution metaphor to lay out that argument, I hope, more clearly. And so I want you to suppose that there's a mill that's upstream, and that unfortunately it's putting into the stream adjacent to the mill. It's putting some pollutants into the water. There's this downstream city, let's suppose, that's suffering by virtue of that pollution, suffering all sorts of health problems. Maybe cognitive dysfunction, asthma, depression, and on and on. Okay, and so we take what I would call the downstream approach typically when we have health problems of that sort. Namely, we treat the consequences of the pollution. So we'll hire epidemiologists to ensure that indeed there's a statistical correlation between the source and the health problems downstream. We'll have physicians and clinicians, lots of them treating those health problems, instructing the population about how they should deal with them. We have special education teachers that are dealing with the cognitive dysfunction that arises by virtue of the pollution. We have social workers dispersing all the benefits that are necessary because lots of folks can't now work by virtue of these health problems. We have police officers and prison guards now being hired in ever higher numbers to deal with the fraying social fabric as more and more folks can't work. That's the downstream approach. It's really complicated, right? There's a lot of things you have to do by virtue of these health problems. Now, of course, if you don't like that downstream approach, there's another way to go, and that would be the upstream approach and just end the pollution. So I would argue that that's a useful metaphor for understanding how we take on poverty as well. So what do? Well, we treat all the symptoms of poverty, and that's a complicated job, right? We hire social scientists, again, a full employment policy for us to track the many and multifarious consequences of poverty, and there are lots. So we lay them out in paper after paper. We hire nurses and physicians to deal with all the health problems, and there are many that arise by virtue of poverty. We hire social workers to disperse benefits and otherwise handle the multifarious problems that arise because of poverty. We, of course, hire police officers and prison guards because we have to be honest about it. One of our main poverty policies is warehousing the poor, and so there's a lot of work to be done on that front too. So if you don't like that downstream approach, there is again an alternative, and it's the upstream one, and that's to repair the institutions that are creating all this poverty. So I want to lay out an ambitious agenda about how you might actually do that. And so I want to talk about this upstream approach, and I think we know in general terms what's to be done, but the devil here, as always, is in the details, and so I want to lay out some of those details. And if we're going to really get serious about taking on poverty, and I think we should, we've got to get it right. You don't get opportunities to do this too often. About half century ago, we had a war on poverty. Many people think, I would argue wrongly, but think it was a failed war. And it took a long time for us to even contemplate the possibility of undertaking another full-on war. I think the time is ripe to do that now, but if we're going to do it, we've got to get it right. So I want to think a bit about how you might indeed take on poverty if you wanted a full-throated upstream approach to poverty. What might you do? And so there's a little bit of a backdrop then that I think you have to immediately recognize and appreciate if you want this full-throated war on poverty. There are two forces at work, and we've been talking about them already today. One is rising income inequality. Everyone knows about that, right? We see it here up front and close. But there's another, so I'm not going to talk much about that force, but it's a backdrop that we have to take on if we're thinking about how to reduce poverty substantially. But the other force that I don't think is as well appreciated is rising commodification. And it's really these two forces operating together that give rising inequality its teeth. So let me lay out what I mean by that. So first, what do I mean by rising commodification? Well, there are two ways that goods and services can be distributed. One way, we all know that, is use the market, right? So if you have the resources, the money, you buy those goods and services, right? The other way, though, is that they're just seen as a prerogative of group membership, that everyone universally is given those goods and services, and we allocate them to members of that group automatically. And by rising commodification, I mean that it's that first approach using the market to allocate goods and services that's increasingly commonly used. So you need the money to buy goods, services, and even opportunity, okay? So let me give you a really simple example, an example about which no one would care in and of itself, but makes it clear what I'm talking about. So when you buy a plane ticket, you become a member of a club, let's say, United Club, American Club, Delta Club, right? You're a club member for a bit. And it was once the case that once you're in that club, you would get a lot of public goods. You'd get some things automatically just by virtue of being a member of that club. You'd get a movie, you'd get a meal, you'd get a snack, you'd get checked luggage privileges, right? Now, if you want those things, money on the table, right? So what was once a public good, you now got to pay for. That's the decline of public goods through this simple example. But there's another force at work, what I would call the decline of public lotteries. It used to be the case that you could get a bulkhead seat or an exit row seat just by lucky, just by luck. That is, you could log on a bit earlier than others and just get it, or you'd line up earlier and get it, and by luck alone, you'd get those seats. Now, of course, if you want the bulkhead seat or if you want the exit row seat, what do? Money on the table. Okay, so that no one cares about that example, except when you're flying. But I think it demonstrates what's going on more broadly. And so I want to talk about just two examples of the decline of public goods and how it affects people who are poor, and the decline of public lotteries. So let's start with public goods. Just one example, but an important one. I don't have much time, but it used to be that just by virtue of being born, you would have access, by and large, to loving child care from your mother. That was just a public good. You're born, you get that. Now, of course, we have a two-earner family, and that's wonderful and great, but let's just think about what that means for poor people. If you want high-quality child care, it's not just automatically provided by your loving mother. You have to buy it. You have to put money on the table. Easy for those who are well off to do that. You just buy your high-quality child care. You've got the money to do that, but if you're poor, this is difficult, right? And we know that high-quality early childhood has immense implications for down-the-road productivity. And so if you don't have access to it, if you don't have the money to put on the table, that's a problem. So that's the decline of public goods. Just one example, but an important one. What about public lotteries? Well, it used to be the case if you, say 75 years ago, if you were poor, you could actually rent an apartment in a city like Palo Alto. And that's like winning the neighborhood lottery, right? Because now your kids would have access to those wonderful Palo Alto public schools and have all the opportunity that's been afforded to them by virtue of that. Now, if you're poor, of course, you're locked out of Palo Alto. You're locked out of those high-amenity neighborhoods. And that's a general phenomenon across the U.S., across California. Poor people are increasingly living with other poor people, and rich people are living with rich people. And that means poor people are locked out of neighborhoods that provide those amenities like high-quality public schooling that make it possible for their children to do well. So that's the decline of public lotteries. There's no neighborhood lottery anymore. Rich live with rich, poor live with poor, and that's consequential. Okay, so what do you do? So what I'm basically laid out is that opportunity has to now be bought. If you're poor, it's not just that you have less money than the well-off, that's rising income inequality, but it also is the case that you need money increasingly to buy opportunity for your kids. You need money to buy high-quality childcare, and that generates opportunity for your kids. You need money to get into high-amenity neighborhoods that allow for high-quality public schooling for your kids, opportunities for sale. You need money now as a poor person, more so than was the case in the past. You need money to buy that opportunity for your kids. So that's the backdrop. What do you do? So we live in this highly commodified world. Poor people are disadvantaged in two ways now. They have less money than the well-off in relative terms, and they need money more than was the case in the past to buy opportunity for their kids. What do you do? Well, one option is to acquiesce to commodification, if I can put it in scholarly speak, and just transfer money to the poor, right? You say, okay, look, opportunities for sale, that's where we are, fine. We do commit as a country to providing opportunity to everyone. We think that's very important. And hence, let's provide the poor with the money that they need so that they can buy opportunity for their kids. So that would just be a transfer program. This is, for example, what Tony Blair did in the UK very aggressively. He reduced poverty. But how long did the Blair program last? As long as Blair lasted. And now it's being dismantled. So it's a politically contentious solution to carry out a lot of transfer, right? So option two, which I think is politically more viable in a country like the US and UK that has certain sensibilities about these things, it's politically more viable to decommodify, to directly provide opportunities in those junctures where the poor don't have access to them. So I'm going to lay out how you might do that very quickly. I'm almost done. So what you want to do is identify those places where poor children don't have the same opportunities as children born into well-off families have. You identify where that is, and then you deliver directly those opportunities. And so the idea is that in this country, we're committed to the principle that all children, no matter how rich or poor their parents may be, all children should have access to opportunities. Let's figure out where it is that we're not living up to that commitment and deliver those opportunities. And so the idea is that, yeah, the market's wonderful in delivering goods and services. It's a wonderful mechanism, except when it comes to opportunity. There we think everyone should have it. All kids should have it, not just those who are lucky enough to be born into rich families, but all kids. And so if we're not living up to that commitment, let's do it. And if you're going to be using taxpayer money for this, and I think you're going to have to, you have to make sure that whenever you spend that money, you do it with programs that have been proven to deliver results. So you might say, by contrast, the rich can spend promiscuously on their children. European vacation, no problem. Finishing school vacation, do it. Maybe it'll have payoff, you're not sure. But you got the money to do it, and so of course as a parent you want to do it. But if you're using taxpayer money, you got to be absolutely sure that any intervention that you undertake is going to be a high payoff one. And so the goal would be to identify, as I'll very quickly go through here, those interventions for which the evidence base is irrefutable. So let's start off with home visiting programs. Basically, the objective here is to equalize information about how to raise children in healthy ways, deliver information about raising children at both prenatal and postnatal stages. The home visiting program has been shown to be very effective. It's just an information intervention. You're just providing information to folks so that they can carry those healthy practices in a way that have been shown to deliver. Very effective program. Equalizes capacities, because we know that these types of practices, when played out, generate healthier kids. Equalize capacities can have a profound effect in reducing poverty. But then you got to hand off. So that's one way in which opportunities are equalized. But the next way is that early training has to be provided to families that can't afford to put the money on the table. So you directly provide early childhood education to poor children. It's again been shown that when you do so in a high quality way, immense payoff. And then there are a whole host of later interventions that you can undertake that have been shown to be low cost and high payoff. I'm going to give you just one example. It's one that's been put out by my colleague, Carolyn Hawksby. What she's shown is that a lot of poor kids don't apply to colleges that line up well with their talents and capacities. They may have a high GPA, very high test scores, but they're not applying to the right types of colleges, the kinds of colleges that will really exploit their talents. If you just provide information to poor kids, using social media, for example, provide information, text messaging, provide information to those kids, saying, actually, if you applied to Stanford, you'd get in and you'd get a free ride. That kind of intervention can be immensely productive. Simple information intervention. What are you doing? You're actually overcoming neighborhood segregation, right? Poor kids don't have access to that kind of information because they're growing up typically with other poor kids who just don't know what kind of colleges for which they might qualify. Well-off kids get that just organically in their neighborhoods by running into other kids who know that information. But you can create an artificial neighborhood through, say, text messaging where you deliver that information. It's on the cheap. Of course, we'd love to live in integrated neighborhoods. Before we get there, this is one cheap way to deliver some of the benefits of an integrated neighborhood without actually integrating. So, there's a plan out there, actually. If you want to learn more about it, it's the Stanford Equal Opportunity Plan that pieces together these interventions that have been shown to work, that will level the playing field. I hope it'll someday be an initiative on the California ballot, maybe 2018. Why do I think if it were an initiative, it might actually garner support? First off, it's politically viable. It avoids cash transfers in favor of directly providing services. And we've actually focus grouped this throughout the state. People are okay with that. They like that approach. Cash transfer, a bit of a problem. Direct provision of opportunities, they're all on board. It's consistent with our values. It's all about equalizing opportunity, which is one of our fundamental values, right? We think that kids, no matter how poor their parents may be, should have opportunities. Let's make sure that happens. We've done the simulations that show that if we make these kinds of interventions in an aggressive, full-throated way, we'll substantially reduce poverty. Why? Because we're treating it at the right scale. Most of our programs are way too small given the magnitude of the problem. Next, it'll be a permanent reduction in poverty because we're treating it at the source. This is an upstream approach, a permanent reduction in poverty. We always want to end poverty tomorrow, right? And so we have a lot of quick fixes, magic bullets, small programs, flavor of the day programs, because we want to do it tomorrow. It's not going to be tomorrow. It's going to take 20 years. But if we do it, if we commit to that now, in 20 years, we can solve this problem, and that would be an extraordinary thing. And we could do it in California, be a leader again. It would be an economy growing reform. Why? We're increasing human capital investments. We would better fulfill California's natural niche, which is a high-skill niche. Make the labor force more productive, and we would save money in the end because our spending on safety net programs would dramatically drop. So that's it. Let's do it. Thank you.
For more video on the 2016 Progress Seminar, go to pantv.tv/videos/specials/Progress Seminar.